Inquiry and Integration in Education is a 22-week online course offered by ThinQ, designed to develop academic intelligence and higher-order thinking capacities in learners. Today we'll talk to KP Mohanan and Tara Mohanan about how IIE came to be. So, Mo and Tara, when did you first think about IIE as a course? And why did you see it as something that needed to materialize as a course?
We thought of IIE first in 2013, when before that Mo was teaching a course called SciEd, Science Education. This was for science teachers, and that was in 2012 and 2013. And that we wanted to give that a different kind of orientation and expand it. And that is why we thought of a course, we thought of inquiry and integration as two aspects that should be part of education. But we were also thinking of a course called Thinking, Inquiry and Knowledge. This is the one that sort of inquiry and integration in education is what gelled. It took about a year of planning, and the first batch of, the first time the course was run was in 2015. Interestingly, the goals that we started with, you asked why, when and why, right? Why we started it was because initially we thought of only teachers, but then found that it's useful for everyone, not just teachers, but students, parents, all educators, anyone involved or interested in education. And so the goals that we set up for it were things that we thought everyone should have. It was critical thinking and rational inquiry. These were the bases at that point. And these would form the foundation for research, and the thinking abilities would be needed by everyone. And the integration part, connecting the knowledge content across whatever we find into a coherent web of knowledge, that was the other part. So that education had whatever you learned in different parts came together and enhanced, each part enhanced the others. That was the idea.
The word science education had a bit of a problem because most people thought of science education as science popularization. That was the first thing that came to people's minds. And that was not what we were trying to do. We tried to explain we were doing science education, not science popularization. But then they thought that we were trying to elucidate the concepts in science textbooks. That also is not what we were trying to do. What we were trying to do was to use science as a terrain in which we can build certain thinking abilities, inquiry abilities, what we call research of a certain kind. We call it simulated research. We are using all the research abilities, but not with the specialized knowledge. And that took some effort for people to get a sense of. And we expanded from science terrain, we expanded that to mathematics, also mathematics and humanities and all forms of academic knowledge. And that's why it was important to change the title from SciEd to Inquiry and Integration in Education.
And also the focus on the inquiry part, especially because inquiry involved abilities, and the abilities could be learned or developed with a basic knowledge, kind of from high school students, the kind of knowledge that a high school student had. And this was one of the things that I mentioned earlier about expansion. It was to all domains of, covering all school and college and university subjects, basically.
We also had difficulty with the word inquiry because people took that to mean inquiry-based learning, which means inquiry is used as a pedagogy to acquire scientific knowledge or whatever knowledge. That's not what we were trying to do. We were using inquiry as the goals of education rather than the means.
And so inquiry-oriented education.
Yeah.
Because learning to inquire, it's not just using inquiry to learn, but in addition, learning to inquire. That was the focus.
Both of you are theoretical linguists by training and profession. How did your history within academic institutions help you arrive at this course or this notion of helping learners acquire inquiry abilities and the importance of knowledge integration across domains?
Yeah, I think we were just lucky in that, when linguists are typically interested in some particular domain of linguistics, and in academia you have to find a niche. We were lucky to not have felt the need to find a niche. And so we dabbled in and worked in and published in several domains. So whether it was the sound system or the word structure or sentence structure or the system of meanings. So that kind of looking across domains began even within linguistics. And once we started teaching, once we were both teaching, I started teaching much later than Mo did. And once we were both teaching, we, especially Mo, started interacting with faculty members from all departments, all faculties in the institution. And I think early on in that process, he organized a kind of conference called what's that? Bases for Beliefs across domains. Yeah. And that was in some sense a huge trigger for this, and arriving at the realization that you really need, not just need, but the kinds of advantages you have if you have a very broad knowledge base across domains. And it's not just knowledge base. With that, now much more important is how the different disciplines research and look for answers. And so we found that there was so much in common across these domains. And people typically look for differences across domains. We were fortunate to see similarities, and that's where the integration began.
That has been our mindset, to look for what is common rather than what makes things different. At the time when we proposed this conference, some of our philosophy friends came to me and said, "Oh, you're doing epistemology." And I said, that doesn't quite sound right. But I couldn't really at that time articulate the difference between epistemology and philosophy and what we were trying to do. It was much, much later, maybe about 2-3 years later, that we discovered we were trying to do the epistemology of academic knowledge, not just any knowledge.
Yeah, that's when we started thinking about thinking like a mathematician, thinking like a physicist, like a biologist, like a historian, like a philosopher, like a linguist, and so on.
That's not part of traditional philosophical epistemology. But that, again, this difference was also not easy to articulate. The other trigger for this was when we were teaching undergraduate linguistics. We knew that the people who graduated from this program were not going to become linguists. They were not going to do their masters in linguistics or specialize in linguistics. So the question was, why were we teaching them linguistics? What was the purpose? What do they get after their graduation? And our answer was not the linguistics knowledge per se, but the kind of training that they get through linguistics. So the shift was from knowledge to mental abilities that they can acquire by constructing linguistic theories, evaluating linguistic theories, and so on.
Mental abilities and habits of mind. Yeah. And actually this question arose when we were designing the curriculum for a new undergraduate linguistics program. And we asked ourselves, so most of these people will not do linguistics. What can they still take away from it, from what they learn in the program? And this is something that every program should ask, was our feeling at the time. So physics, for example, you do an undergraduate degree in physics. How much of it are you going to use in the rest of your life? Or any subject for that matter. That was another trigger for the expansion and integration.
So remember, there were people from other faculties who said, "Oh, you can do this in linguistics. Linguistics is different. Can you do that in our discipline?" So a historian came to me and said, "Can you do this kind of stuff in history?" And we said, "Yes, in principle, yes, but we don't know enough about history to do that. So why don't we do it together?" So we created a course, Critical Thinking and Inquiry in History. There was a document of 50 pages, right? I don't think somewhere it must be, yeah. And the same thing happened with physics, biology, and so on.
Medicine,
yes, right, yeah.
Engineering,
yeah.
Yeah.
So all those things, together contributed to this course. There's a long history.
Looks like it was all leading up to starting this.
There was also the general education program in US. And we suggested that it should have two goals. One was the modes of inquiry, that students should learn how to inquire in these different domains. And the other one was what you call general knowledge, by which we meant not the kind of general knowledge that you ask for in quiz competitions, like when did Marilyn Monroe sneeze in front of Abraham Lincoln or something like that. Not necessarily that, but the kind of basic concepts that are part of the 21st century, 20th century worldview, and not only the understanding of the concepts, but also the evidence and arguments. So why should we believe that humans evolved from bacteria? Not simply the information content. That was well accepted by everybody, but I think didn't quite get implemented fully for various reasons.
Yeah, one of the things we focused on was to take an example. Why do we say that the earth goes around the sun rather than the sun goes around the earth? Our children learn this, and if only given a chance, they would ask why, because that's counterintuitive. So what's the evidence for it? And we've seen a kind of delight in children when they see that evidence. So shouldn't that be part of education? So these are some of the, so it's not one thing, it's a number of things that converged on the need for a course like this. And a course like this, not just for any particular group, but for anyone who is interested.
Right. So IIE has had 7 cohorts so far.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So could you tell us a little bit about how the course has evolved over the years?
I think the goals haven't changed. They've been fairly steady. So we started out by saying the course has 2 components: the modes of inquiry, the mathematical, scientific, and humanistic modes of inquiry, and in terms and transdisciplinarity. So concepts of knowledge and inquiry across domains. These were the foci, in some sense, of the course, and that hasn't changed. In other ways, the kind of teaching, the materials that we use, the readings, the kinds of added things like a quiz and so on, logistical issues, those might have changed. But the central thread, I think, remains.
The learning outcomes haven't changed, but we have become better at the pedagogical part. So, for example, when we started, we didn't have a textbook.
Right.
Now we have a fairly well-organized, we
have reasonably well-organized reading materials, let's put it that way.
There was another aspect, that is when we started, we are focusing on the modes of inquiry, like mathematical inquiry, scientific inquiry, philosophical inquiry. And then we discovered that we also need to focus on the tools of inquiry that cut across these modes of inquiry.
That we realized in the very first year and started focusing on that from 2016 onwards, in fact.
Were the tools present in that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. And in fact, the reading was organized in terms of the tools.
Okay. Only when we started writing the textbooks.
Yes.
But did we start writing the textbook that early?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
I've forgotten that. Okay.
We didn't think of it as a textbook. We thought of it as notes
materials for
each learning trigger.
Yeah.
Right. And so, if a learner was to come and ask you today, what value does IIE offer to me? What would you say?
Well, I don't know. My answer would be it'll make you more intelligent in many different ways. By intelligence, what I mean to say is the ability to think, the ability to reason, the ability to evaluate something, the ability to learn, ability to make connections, a large number of mental abilities. And these abilities can be trained, and through training can get better and better. And those abilities are of value to you in any part of your life. It could be of value to you in your professional life. It could be of value to your personal life. It could be of value to your public life. And if you want to do research, this acts as a kind of foundation. So I think that would be our ultimate answer, really.
Yeah, and developing certain habits of mind, of not taking anything taking anything for granted as being confirmed knowledge. Yeah. Being aware that we might be wrong, what we get from others and our own conclusions might be wrong. Being able to think through them clearly, that clarity of thought, and also clarity of articulating your thoughts. I think yes. Yeah. These are some of the things that you get from the course. More than that, I think there are others, those who have done the course, who've said what they have taken away. I think that might be valuable.
How does IIE contribute to ThinQ's goals, the goals that ThinQ wishes to achieve?
Actually, IIE was one of the things that ThinQ had in mind when it started, because it needed a place for running the course, some kind of a base for running the course. So it's not that ThinQ decided on IIE, but they have fed each other, because at the heart of ThinQ was a kind of predisposition to, and the ability, the stamina, a sustained stamina to engage with ideas and questions, and the excitement of figuring things out for yourself. These are these are at the heart of ThinQ. And another is to constantly be on a quest collaboratively. So you're not thinking of yourself, you're thinking of it as a collaborative journey. So this, I think, feeds into into IIE, and what happens in IIE encourages this ThinQ to continue that journey.
There is also the ultimate goal, the vision that we have, and the vision is about the world, let us say 50 years from now. What kind of world do we want? And we want that world to be a world with well-being in all domains of life. Not only the intellectual well-being, which is the kind of stuff that we've been talking about, inquiry, integration, knowledge, uncertainty of knowledge, and so on, but also ethical well-being, which is extremely important for us. A world in which people care for each other, are compassionate towards each other, there is very little violence, discrimination, and so on. That's extremely important.
And a world in which it's okay to make mistakes, because you learn from your mistakes, and we shouldn't be afraid to make mistakes. And that's the only way we're going to take risks, whether in terms of ideas or in terms of actions.
And a world in which there is freedom, not only the intellectual freedom, but all kinds of other freedoms. And democracy is possible only if we have that kind of attitude. Otherwise, voting is not going to give you democracy. Voting alone, in fact, you can also have democracy without voting. So we were thinking about a world in which those things happen. Aesthetic well-being, ethical well-being, economic well-being, physical well-being, all forms of well-being.
With a very strong sense of community and collective responsibility.
And we thought of this, the intellectual path of Think in IIE as one way of getting there. Or perhaps, I don't know, sometimes I tend to think that this is the most important part. Ethics can come in as part of this quest. Not necessarily, but you'll have to do something more. But it's not possible for any small group of people to do all that work. So we were hoping that there'll be others who would join us.
Which is happening.
Yeah, slowly.
And the other thing is, this is, I think, one of those quests where chronological age is irrelevant.
Yeah.
You do you continue this throughout your life.
Yeah. But we're still looking for some, for example, people specializing in meditative practices to join us so that we could also look for emotional well-being in addition to intellectual well-being. Yeah. Those are dreams.
Thank you, Aditi, for talking to us about something that's very close to our heart.
And I hope it's been of value to all the listeners who joined us. You can find details about IIE in the accompanying text on whichever platform this is made available. All right. Thank you.